Welcome to the Care for Pastors podcast. I'm Robbie Bolden, your host. And today on the podcast, we will continue in our series on the pains of ministry. And today on the podcast, we're going to focus on the issue of depression in ministry. Now, most of us step into ministry excited and looking forward to what God's going to do in and through us as we serve His people. But the truth of the matter is, in the throes of ministry, we can and will experience seasons of depression. So today on the podcast, we have with us a special guest, Krissie Glass. She is going to share with us today the pain of depression that she experienced with her late husband, Eric. Krissie will walk us through her journey of watching her husband battle with depression and ultimately losing that battle this side of heaven. Now, her journey has a lot of important lessons for us to learn in our personal lives and as a church family. Krissie is now remarried to Cam, and she's a counselor here to our PKs at Care for Pastors. And I'd love for you to get to know her and listen to her story about depression that she experienced with her husband, Eric. Thank you for your time. Now to the podcast. Krissie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
Oh, it's good to have you, and we really appreciate you taking time today to come talk to our audience, our pastors and ministry leaders and their families. And so I guess today we want to talk about a subject that's probably on a lot of people's hearts and minds, and that's the issue of depression and how it affects pastors and their families. And so, Krissie, can you share with us how the pain of depression and has affected you and your family?
Absolutely. And I'll start by just saying that I grew up in a ministry family. I'm a pastor's kid, and depression was something we always acknowledged in our home, but it's something that we didn't really talk about and experience. And so when I went into the field of mental health and I received my master's in marriage and family counseling, I knew of it, but I didn't really personally understand and experience it. And on such a personal level. And when I was at seminary getting my master's in marriage and family counseling, I had met my husband, Eric, and he was a pastor and in his master's level program as well. We got married and we went straight into ministry, and we were so excited and ready for it, and had this picture in our mind of what it would look like, what our life would be like, and all the joy that we would experience being able to do the work that we always wanted to do, and that was helping others. And just experiencing all that joy and helping other people and being in church ministry, there were great moments in our life, but also we started experiencing life together and hardship and suffering, and part of our story and the struggles that we experienced had to do with depression and anxiety and just mental health struggles. And I was married to the most outgoing, amazing man, and he loved the Lord and he loved people, but he had a very deep and long struggle of depression and anxiety, and the pressures that ministry brought into our home and to him personally really affected him in ways I am still trying to understand. And even though I'm in practice for helping people who are struggling with the same issues, I didn't realize it was going on in our own home as severely as it was happening in his life and in our home. And of course, long story short, just watching him struggle and not be able to talk about it and not be able to get the help he needed for it, not really knowing who to talk to about it, it changed our life. And unfortunately, we are one of the stories where he didn't know what else to do. He didn't know how to heal from such a long period of time with these struggles and not getting the appropriate help he needed. And he ended up taking his life. And obviously has changed my life forever and our kids' life forever. And so there's a lot to be said about depression and
Yeah.
how it affects each family and pastors and their families who experience it. There's so much to talk about there, and I'm glad we're talking about it right now.
Hmm. Thank you for sharing a really painful part of your life. I imagine that's not very easy to do.
No, and it's 6 years. It's been 6 years since he passed away, and it's still not easy to talk about. And I feel anxiety right now talking about it, but
Yeah.
um, we face our fears because it's important to bring people hope who are dealing with this. And I want his life and our experience to have purpose to help other people. So,
Wow. Well, on behalf of all of us who are listening today, we're sorry. And we're thankful that you've taken time to share um, this painful journey with us. And obviously, the topic is important to you. So, why do you feel like the topic is so important for pastors to talk about and ministry leaders?
whew, well, just knowing what we went through, and when I was finally able to be open and share about our personal experience with depression and anxiety and all that came with that in ministry, I found that there are so many families, especially families who are in ministry, who are battling the same things that we battled with. And it's important just to say that depression and suicidal thoughts and addictions and different things like this, it has such a big impact on so many pastoral families and ministry families. I know that was our case. We called it our silent struggle. For a long time, we just couldn't talk about it. And the church didn't have an open forum where we could talk about pastors struggling with these things. And I think it's just 6 years down the line right now, the conversation has changed so much. And I'm so thankful for that. But for a long time, it was silent. And I think right now we're talking about it, and we need to bring what's been in the dark, we need to bring it into light so that it's not just something we struggle with, but it's something we talk about. It's something that we get healing from and we find help for.
Um, what did it feel like in your experience to not feel like you could talk to anybody about this and just deal with it alone?
The word that comes to mind is fear. There's so much fear that is associated with struggling with depression. And I say all the things that come with it is it's not just depression, right? A lot of times it's associated with physical health, not just mental health. It's associated with relationships and how it affects your friends and your family and just your overall um, interests and way you live. And it also affects other areas. For example, in our story, my late husband, his depression caused him to want to fix it, and that led to an opioid addiction and a lot of physical ailments that he experienced because he hid so much for so long. When we did in our current situation at the time,
Yeah.
we decided to tell our church leadership about the struggles that Eric was experiencing, and their word of advice was to hide it and to not talk
Mm.
about it, to not tell the people about it, because people wouldn't understand that one of their pastors had all these struggles, because we're supposed to be the ones that had it together. We're supposed to be the ones that stand up in front of people and say, hey, we have the answers to help you, and you need to see us and view us this way. And that is so detrimental because, yes, we are to be above reproach, but yes, we are human and we need the space to be human, especially when we are struggling. And the church should be the place that says, okay, get help. And so oftentimes, ministry families I've met and talked to feel the fear of dealing with these things, but they also feel the isolation from it.
Mm.
And I felt that. so deeply.
Yeah. What did it feel like for your leadership to tell you that?
You know, I have battled with that situation for years. And at the time, we thought this makes sense. Like, we know scripture, we went to school
Yeah.
to know the Bible, to understand how to use scripture to help other people. And we both had relationships with the Lord, my late husband and I. And our goal was to help people. And so we trusted that in the leadership we worked with, that they were giving us good advice, even though it didn't feel right. Um, that was our calling. That was our job. It was our livelihood. So to go against the advice of that leadership, there just wasn't another option at the time. We needed that job. We loved ministry, and so we chose to honor what they had suggested, even though we knew there was something off about it. And the thing is I think maybe going back to them, they would say, I wish we wouldn't have given that advice. I can't say that for sure, but I
Right.
think we've come so far in our church culture that it is more openly discussed and talked about, and more common of a struggle that pastoral families are dealing with. So um, yeah, I think it's like I could be upset with them for how they handled it, or I
Yeah.
could choose to say I'm not going to handle that way, and any church I'll be a part of from now on will know that that is not the reaction and response that we should follow.
Yeah. Wow. So there's actually a fear that your jobs may be in jeopardy if you made too big a deal out of it.
Absolutely, because then we would completely break down the um, stigma that a pastor
Hmm.
should have it all together, that a pastor's family, if they didn't have it together, they could fix it, right? Because they're close
Right.
to the Lord, and because they have the answers. And maybe if they prayed more or read the scriptures more, or, you know, took it upon themselves to figure it out, then that's what we are supposed to do so that we can be on our best game to help other people.
I would imagine the enemy kind of infiltrates your mind and to, I don't know, maybe make you feel like you're not very spiritual or you're lacking in a lot of areas.
Mhm.
Is that maybe the case?
Absolutely. And when you're going through it, I helped write a book called Open Letters to Our Fellow Fighters, and how the gospel brings hope to depression and anxiety. And in the book, we talk a lot about how it feels like you're in a fog.
Hmm.
Nothing really seems to make sense. And it just feels like you're just like trying to do the next thing you know to do. And that is,
Right.
maybe I'll just go pray more. I remember watching my late husband go into his room for hours, and he would just say, I'm just going to spend time with the Lord, and this is going to go away eventually. And
Hmm.
even though he had the right heart and right mind, and he should have spent time with the Lord,
Yeah.
he didn't understand why these his experience of and his feelings weren't changing after doing this. And so it was just, okay, what's the next thing we do? It's just, it's confusing,
Yeah.
especially when you don't have the community and the help that you need surrounding you, and giving you some direction and how to navigate your way
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah. Shifting gears for a second, I think one of the things we need to do is really kind of define what depression is. So
Mm,
can you kind of give us an overview of what depression is?
yes, I can try. It's different for everyone, and I can give you um, a professional definition of it, and that is just, it's a common mental health condition, and it's characterized by persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness. And you start to see that you're losing interest in things that you normally enjoy, that
Yeah.
used to bring you joy. and excitement. And so, yeah, it's just that extreme low and sadness and hopelessness, and it hits you, and you don't know how to get out of it. And
Right.
um, I think it's important that we say it is common for people to experience it.
Yeah. What are some signs of depression in you and in yourself first, and then also in others? Because I would imagine, and you can help me with this, help us with this. It looks, I mean, obviously, it probably looks different in everybody, but um, that self internal dialogue of, am I depressed? What does that look like?
Well, I think it's important to say, I'm not going to run away from
Mm.
acknowledging that this might be depression. I think if you're
Okay.
asking yourself, are you depressed? Then that's something, right? That's a
Okay.
seed that you have, and you're like, you don't have to run away from that. There's no shame in feeling it. Like I said, it is more common than we think, and
Hmm.
um, we hear it more and more that more and more people are experiencing it. So, um, some of the signs and symptoms that you can really, as you're looking inward and really evaluating what you're experiencing, is, am I feeling that hopeless feeling? And am I feeling more consistent periods of time where I am sad, um, and I'm low and I lack interest or motivation in doing things? Of course, you can also see change in weight, change in appetite, and sleeping patterns. It's very common for people to feel just fatigued, like we talked about, the lack of motivation, loss of
Right.
energy. And so, going back to the fog thought, you just feel like your brain is just in this fog, and things aren't as clear
Right.
as they once were. And so those are just a few symptoms that, as you're kind of um, asking yourself the question, am I experiencing depression? These are just kind of a check mark to say, okay, yes, yes. And I also want to add, there are different levels to depression, and
Hmm.
you had even mentioned that it looks different in every person. And a lot of times depression can be circumstantial. It could be based on what you're experiencing and just things not going right in your life and right around you. And it could be a loss of a loved one, things that um, are happening around you. We call that situational or circumstantial depression. Or it could be a clinical or chronic depression where you are like, this is happening for a very long period of time. And it just changes your brain chemistry, and you're seeing that even if things get better around you, you're still feeling this way. And so it's important to kind of note, which one might I be going through? Which one
Yeah.
might be more common to what I'm experiencing? So,
So, given that, what are some signs in others as you're watching them? If you're concerned about someone going through depression, what does it look like in them?
I'll tell you, this one is challenging to me because I can give you my textbook answer, and that is
Right.
everything I've just shared.
Right.
Seeing if they're experiencing or exhibiting signs of sadness, and if that's happening for weeks or months at a time. If you can tell just a change in their behavior, those are signs and symptoms you can see in others. But a lot of times, and this was the case with my late husband, Eric, they're so outgoing. They have learned to hide it so well. It's not as easy to see these things happening. And
Right.
again, that's part of the stigma of what mental health and mental illness is we think we have these ideas of what it's supposed to look like. And then we're shocked when we find out, sometimes too late, that people were experiencing this. And so, yes, there's textbook answers, but I think the bigger answer I can give is to care about the people around you enough to ask how they're doing.
Right.
Even if they seem happy and are outgoing and can bring so much light and joy in a room, it doesn't mean they're not battling something very deeply internally. And so it's just loving and caring about the people around us and asking from time to time, really, how are you doing? And how can I be praying for you? And again, they may not give you an answer, but persistence is not a bad thing in that in that
No,
area.
it's
Is
not.
care about the people around you. Ask them.
Because pastors and ministry leaders are so people oriented, outgoing, they're the ones trying to make everyone else feel better, for
Mm-hmm.
lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
They can hide it. But I would think the number one person who can see a need as a spouse. And so, because you see what's going on behind the scenes as a spouse, what do you need to look for?
This is where I get a little emotional because I still carry guilt on how I handled our personal situation with my late husband and knowing what was going on with him, but not helping him as much as I should have, or missing the seriousness of his suicidal threats at times. Um, and so, as a spouse, I can just speak as real and as vulnerable as I can. Is you're not perfect, you're not their savior, you can't save them,
Right.
but goodness, you can be there for them. And
Yep.
you may not understand everything they're dealing with, and you may feel annoying at times. My big thing is I don't want to be a drippy faucet, you know.
Yeah.
But I wish I would have been more. Support is just loving them the best you can, checking on them as much as you can, and especially when it's to the degree that suicidal thoughts are being communicated and threats are being made, um, to take those seriously, um, to bring it to the Lord for direction and discernment on those things. But that's not easy. It's not easy.
Yeah.
And several people who watch and listen to this are probably saying, it's not that easy as you're saying. And I get that. But we do what we can do. And we stay so close to the Lord that we just ask Him for guidance in that time and just keep loving and keep pursuing uh, your spouse to get help and healing.
Yeah. Krissie, thank you for being vulnerable. That really helps. I believe your vulnerability is going to help someone who's going to listen to this. So thank you. You want to take a minute?
Welcome. No, it's good. It's good to feel it because the grief doesn't go away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've worked a lot with the Lord. I've worked with my own counselors, and I've come to a peace of knowing that on this side of heaven, there's going to be a lot that goes with our story,
Yep.
but that God's still writing it and that God is going to continue to use it. And so I appreciate talking about it because if this helps a family in any way who's struggling with this, who is suffering in silence like we did, it helps them just make that step towards getting help and healing, then every conversation is worth it.
Yeah.
Every tear is worth it. And so, yes, I'll just say I'm good to go. I'm good.
All right, good. Do you ever live with the thought that I didn't do enough?
I think that's a great question. Absolutely. I definitely have alluded to that several times. I think every time I talk about it, that thought comes to my mind. What could I have done differently? What should I have done differently? Because as a mental health professional, I should have had all the tools. I should have known, but this is where a relationship with the Lord is so important and so personal to me, is that He reminds me that I was there,
Yep.
that I stayed, that I loved Eric, my late husband, the best I knew how. And I have to go to Him to remind me of these truths. And it doesn't mean my humanity, my human side doesn't feel and let my mind wander to those things, but I have to always bring my mind back to truth, and that is you're a good wife and you loved your husband to the end and you stood by him and you didn't have all the answers, and that's okay. That's
Yeah.
okay, but you did the best that you knew to do, and you still have a life. That's the thing, is I still have a life ahead of me
Hmm.
where I can help other people. And that is what I can do.
Yes, that's what you can. We always talk about that here at Care for Pastors, don't we?
Hmm.
What we can
Yes.
do, and that's
Yes.
what you can do. Amen. I affirm that. That is so good. Well, let me take another turn here and let me ask you this. I personally believe everyone experiences some kind of depression in their life. And I think we've all said it. I'm feeling depressed today or whatever. But how do you know when it's a serious problem?
Well, going back to the symptoms and signs and what is depression, I think it's a checklist, right? Is acknowledging it. Am I experiencing some of these things that we have talked about, that's been listed? Are these things that I every day am feeling? Acknowledge it and then identify it. Say, okay, yes, I am feeling this, and then go from there and say, what do I do about it?
Hmm.
And as a part of the identifying it, when we talk about situational versus a more clinical depression, is this something that I'm just experiencing right now because of things going just bonkers in my life and the chaos, or a loss, or conflict within the church leadership or within the church body? I mean, these are things you have to identify, like, okay, yes, I am feeling this way, but why? And if these feelings, if these symptoms and signs, they persist for a long period of time, that's when you have to say, okay, this may not be just situational. This is maybe something I need to get more help for. But either way, even if you're feeling it and it may be just what you're going through right now, I am a big advocate. Like, get help, talk to someone,
Hmm.
specifically a faith-based Christian counselor that can help you just navigate some of these thoughts and feelings, and just help you walk through, what in the world is this? And how
Yeah.
do I feel better? How do I keep getting up each day and keep living my life, even though my body and my mind is fighting against me? Even if you feel like this isn't going to last a long time, get help for it. And if it persists, if it keeps going for a long period of time, and we say for more than a month, that's a good metric, for more than a month, where it's just keeping you from living life, then you continue counseling and maybe take the next step of getting more help, whether that may be more of an intensive faith-based counseling or medication, and those are things that Christian counselors can help you navigate.
Yeah. So, why do you think there's such a stigma associated with depression, in particularly with pastors and church leaders?
We've been talking about it throughout this whole podcast, is um, somewhere along the way. And it's funny, even looking back when I was a young kid in ministry, my dad was a lead pastor, and we had a pretty healthy family. We had a pretty healthy church. And just remembering from such a young age that I had to be a certain way, that I had to put a smile on my face when I went to church. I had to act a certain way. And it's interesting, as I've talked to my parents through the years, like, what was that? Was that an expectation that the church put on my family? Was it what my parents put on us? Was it us, that as a pastor's kid, that I put on myself? And that's something I'm still trying to explore. But I
Yeah.
think somewhere along the way, as ministry families, we created this belief system that we have to have it all together, Because if we're going to stand up in front of people and if we're going to model who Christ is, then we have to act this way, say the right things, pray the right way, um, respond the right way. And those expectations have at times just suffocated us. And I think as people listen and watch this, I think you're probably saying, yes, I feel that so personally. I
Yeah.
agree with that. As adults, when we go into ministry, if that's what the Lord has called us into, and just what we've decided to to pursue in our life, we carry that stigma into it, right? And we so desperately have great intentions to have it together so that we can
Hmm.
effectively help others. But I love the quote that a friend told me not too long ago, that expectation kills authenticity.
Mm.
And that expectation, I think, blinds us from the reality that we are human.
Right.
And the pressure of that causes fear, it causes hiding, it causes isolation. And so it's just important that we be aware this is a stigma. Even if we don't find the root of what the stigma is, we need to change it.
Yeah.
We need to change it, because if we're asking other people to trust in the Lord with their lives, with their struggles, with everything in them, then we need to follow that instruction as well.
Yeah.
And we need the culture and the grace to be able to follow that as well.
Oh, that's good. That's good. We've talked a lot about the symptoms of depression, what it looks like, those kind of things. But how does depression affect PKs, and what should we know about that in their lives?
So this could be a whole other, I think, podcast topic is
Right.
depressions in teens and young adults. It looks so different than it used
Does it?
to. Like I said, when I was growing up, when I was a teen, depression was something that was acknowledged. It just wasn't talked about. I remember I had some struggles in high school with identity issues and relationships, and my mom totally opened up the door for me to go see a Christian counselor, but I was not allowed to talk to anyone about seeing this person and meeting with this person. And I think best intention, she was protecting me in a sense, but that's just how we were raised. And as a teenager, I knew it's okay to be experiencing this, but it's not okay to talk about it. And
Hmm.
fast forward to today's culture, just in the last 5, 6 years since our experience with Eric and his battle with depression and suicidal ideation, it's almost as if we've over communicated it, and many teens and young adults almost idolize the thought of, oh, well, I have anxiety, I have depression, I thought about taking my life today. It has become something that's so normalized. It's concerning, because yes, depression is something that needs to be talked about. It needs to be acknowledged, and there needs to be healing and a journey that people go through, and God can absolutely use it when we approach it in a way as something like, oh, this is a struggle that God can use, but not a struggle I want to wear as my identity and not get help and not get over it. And that's what we're finding working with teens and young adults is, no, this isn't who you are. This is a part of you. This is a part of the broken world. Just like any other sickness, we want to get healing from it. Um, we want, even if it doesn't go away, like we want to find joy in this life, and we want the Lord to use any struggle we go through for His glory and for His purpose in our life. And so, these are the messages we're really trying to work through with young adults, is that depression is real and acknowledged, and it's something that it doesn't define you at all,
Right.
um, but it's something that you're experiencing and something that God can use within you. And so It's it's one of those things we are consistently learning about and trying to work with, and every person is different.
Sounds like good advice for even adults. So, um, yeah, it sounds like we need to do a podcast on. We need to have a conversation on PKs and depression. So maybe we'll
Absolutely.
think about that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Um, great. So if we feel that someone we care about is struggling with depression, how can we get help? Where do we get help?
Oh, goodness. The great thing about just the shift in how this topic has been more normalized is that there are more resources available. There's more books that have been written about it. There are more Christian counselors available, and it's not so shameful to actually reach out for help. And so
Right.
that's a benefit of continuing this conversation and understanding what depression is and how it affects people and how it does affect the ministry family as well. And an important message that we have to remind ourselves and the people we love and the people that we help is that you're not alone. You're not
Mhm.
alone in this, and you don't have to be alone in this. And if you don't get help, you hide it. And that's so against everything that we teach. We want to bring things out of the darkness into the light. And God calls us to all throughout scripture. And if we're going to teach about saving grace, about sustaining grace, then we need to believe that for ourselves as ministers of the gospel. That God provides for us, yes, His word, yes, His presence, but He provides for us resources.
Mhm.
And we are not too spiritual. We do not have to control it and fix it ourselves. God calls us to be in community, and He
Mhm.
provides that community. He provides help for us. And we just need to take the step to say, I don't have it all together and I need help. I need help.
You know what that sounds like? It sounds
What?
like we need to swallow our pride and admit we don't have it all together.
Yes. And as someone in ministry my entire life, that's hard.
It is. It's very hard.
That's very difficult to do because even with all the knowledge that we have about scripture and theology, and we feel like somehow we are closer to the Lord, even though that's so against what we teach and really believe, practicing it is so different.
Yeah.
And we need to just say, I am human. And God, I trust that you can heal me, you can help me, but I'm going to step out in faith and be a good steward of what I teach and what I believe and actually put it into action.
Yeah. So, given everything we've talked about today, I think a good landing spot would be to ask this final question, and that would be what are some of the steps that ministry leaders and pastors can take to maintain a healthy emotional life?
Just going back to what we just talked about is swallowing our pride to say it's okay to not be okay. It's okay that we don't have it all together. And we trust a bigger God than all of this. We trust a good God who wants to take our struggles and He wants us to have an abundant life. You can see behind me, this is our life verse in our home and in my family that God can do abundantly more, immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine. And we have to believe that and take the steps in that belief and actually get the help that we need. Even though we're pastors and ministry families, we need help too. And it's letting go of that pride to say, okay, something's wrong. I need help. And I'm going to reference a story if that's okay. I know we're
Yeah, go
landing,
ahead.
but I remember when Eric first took his life and he passed away, my initial response and reaction was to make it okay. Because that's what I knew to do is to make it look okay, to try to put this horrible, tragic death into some kind of box of understanding for people and put a bow on it. And that was my first reaction. And the Lord hit me pretty, pretty good, like with the realization that if you do not acknowledge it now, if you do not let it hurt now, then it is going to stay with you and hurt later. And it's going to come out in even worse ways because you're not acknowledging it, because you're not saying, this was awful and I hate sin, I hate Satan, I hate
Mm-hmm.
that this is a part of our world. But because I believed in a God that was good, that wanted to bring healing, that I would allow him, I would just say, you know what? I can't make this right. I can't make this pretty, but God, you can write a beautiful story from it. And so I had to say, I've got to do what I need to do now to get healing that I need for me, from my kids. Because I haven't really even talked about my kids much and their healing in this, but that I needed to let it hurt now and be uncomfortable now so that I could find freedom and healing in the future. And that's the word of encouragement I want to give to pastoral families who are going through something that they are scared to get help for, whether it be depression, anxiety, burnout, conflict, addiction. I mean, there's so many things we could list, right, that we do
Yeah.
experience as ministry families. But
Mm-hmm.
if you don't get help now, it's going to be detrimental for your future, for you, for your family, for your church family. And that's why it's important to just swallow your pride and say, I'm going to let it hurt now so that I can find healing and so that God can go ahead and start using this.
Yeah.
And that's a word of encouragement. And I also want to add, as part of that healing process, is if you are in leadership at a church, and a lot of this is on lead pastors, um, create a culture of compassion for your staff. Create a culture where they can come to you and not be so afraid of the consequences, but know that you're going to be a safe place they can say, I need help. And have a list of resources on hand to say, okay, I'm going to walk with you through this. And we're going to call some of these places because there are so many. And one of them is Care for Pastors. We all have been through something. We've all been in ministry. Like, we get it. And we're an organization that wants to help other pastors and spouses and pastors' kids, because we know what it's like to have a lot of these struggles and experiences that you're going through, and we got help for them. And God is now using us as counselors to help others
Yeah.
and to
Amen.
help them find healing. So,
I agree. That's good. Thank you for that. Fortunately for you, God is rewriting your future, isn't he?
yes.
Tell us about what God's been doing in your life the last couple of years.
So, when Eric had passed away, I went through a time of wrestling with, do I even want to go back to church? I grew up in church ministry. My dad is still a pastor to this day, and I was married to a pastor, and we had experienced some things in churches that brought a lot of pain in our home, in our family. Um, Obviously, pain to my late husband that he didn't get to reconcile on this side of heaven, but um, it was pretty quick that God was like, no, the church is the church and people are people, but the church is where you belong. And so I remember telling the Lord, don't you love this? Like, God, okay, I'm going to jump right back into church. I believe this is the bride,
Mm-hmm.
that you use the church for good. And I'm going to be a part of it, but I'm not going to be in ministry. I'm not going to marry a pastor again. And it was shortly after these conversations with the Lord that Care for Pastors reached out to me, and they said, okay, so this isn't in the church, but it's actually helping pastors' families in the church. And I was like, yes, I can do that. This is a passion and a heart of mine, and God has equipped me for this. But then shortly after, uh, I had met a guy, and he just happened to be a pastor and fell in love with him. And we got married over 2 years ago. And he is a lead pastor at a church here in Texas. And right back into local church ministry we go. And honestly, I thank God every day for it because, yes, we still experience some of the hardships that church ministry brings. But that's part of the healing, is that we keep showing up and we keep loving on the people that God has allowed us to shepherd. And God has used this church family and used my husband and the ministry work that we do to heal me and to bring healing to my children. And I'll tell you something. I have twins and they're 8. They were not even 2 when Eric passed away. They love church. They love going to church. And they love Jesus in their little 8-year-old hearts and minds.
Mm-hmm.
They say, we love Jesus. And I can see how the impact of ministry and the hardships we went through and the depression that my late husband experienced, all of that could have jaded and kept me from serving and from continuing to go to the house of the Lord and being a part of church community. And now I see my kids get up before me on Sunday mornings and say, we're ready for church. And that brings healing and hope for all that has happened. So,
Wow, that's so encouraging.
yeah.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. And Cam, your husband,
Yes.
really neat guy. We love him here. And
he's he's pretty great. And he loves the Lord. And he's a pastor. God's like,
yeah,
here you go.
and he's quite the pickleball player, isn't he?
Oh goodness. I'm pretty sure he's good at anything that's athletic and
Yeah,
yes, and quite the pickleball player. I'm not as good.
yeah,
I wish I was.
yeah. He's a good man, and you know we're thankful for you sharing your story today, and thankful that Krissie, you were willing to be vulnerable with us and help us to walk with you through this. And if somebody's looking for more information, what resources would you recommend?
Wow. And I was so thankful today coming onto this podcast because back when I started talking about this 5, 6 years ago, I didn't have that many resources. And now I can give you so many, and there's probably so many more out there. But obviously, Care for Pastors. You can go to our website, careforpastors.org, and find resources on depression, anxiety, suicide, addiction, all the things that pastors struggle with. You can find encouraging blogs on that and other resources. And then also, if you're a young adult and teen and you're a pastor's kid, we have pastorskids.org, where we have a Facebook and an Instagram as well. And so you can stay connected. We post constantly and consistently on our sites just to relate to other pastors' families. I will share that books that have encouraged me through the years, obviously the one that I co-authored with another pastor, theologian, philosopher, Dr. Rob Phillips, Open Letters to Our Fellow Fighters. That's one. Another one I feel like everyone should read is Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. And just for those who just need to know the Lord's goodness and faithfulness in times of struggle, Gentle and Lowly was a book that meant so much to me and really related to me when I felt like I was in Christian word valleys of my grief. And goodness, there's so many more. There was one I recently read that's just very practical. It's mental health in your church. And that one I've used in trainings when I talk to church staffs. And I think that's a really good resource as well. So just a good starting point for
Yeah,
anyone who's
thank you.
watching and listening.
Yeah, great.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Yeah, I want to encourage all of you, if you would, just go to our website and you'll find a ton of resources there. We also have the Pastor's Ally. And if you feel like you're a pastor who doesn't have any place to just share what's on your mind and your heart in a confidential setting, that is a great place. And then the confidant for pastors' wives. Listen, we vet everyone who joins these groups. They have to be a part of a local church. They have to be a pastor.
Hmm.
They have to be a pastor's wife, and so that's our commitment to you, to provide a safe place for you and your family. And so, Krissie, I want to thank you today for your time with us, and we're really grateful for you sharing your story. And so, any final words that you have for our audience today?
Just know that you're loved, and thank you for the ministry work that you're doing. And even if you feel like there are days when it's pointless, it's not. God is using you. God will use this time in your life, and get help if you need it. Please get
Amen.
help if you need it.
We're here. Care for
We're
Pastors
here.
is here for you, and there are other places. So we're not the only ones in this space. So if you need help, get some help. Well, Krissie,
Yeah.
thank you for being with us today.
No, thank you so much for just opening up this conversation and for the work that you do. It has changed my life, so thank you.
Yep. Bye.